It didn't begin as a romantic comedy. The original ending was much darker and more in line with the type of films that Albert Brooks typically created. Albert Brooks is a comedian celebrated for his neurotic, satirical, cynical, yet intellectually sharp style. He is often recognized as a pioneer of the mockumentary genre. Released on April 5, 1991, Defending Your Life was a modest success. But like many films, it has garnered a significant following over the decades. Albert Brooks wrote, directed, and starred in this distinctive film about an ad executive who dies in a car crash and finds himself in Judgment City, a purgatory-like limbo where newcomers must defend their earthly lives before a tribunal. This tribunal determines whether they are ready to transition to a higher existence or be reincarnated on Earth for another chance. During the trial, clips from the deceased's life are shown to evaluate whether they acted courageously or allowed fear to hold them back. Daniel meets and falls in love with Julia, played by Meryl Streep. Julia lived a courageous life and is destined to move on, while Daniel fears that his trial isn't going well and he may be sent back to Earth. Defending Your Life is an entirely underrated philosophical journey that invites viewers to an existential self-assessment. Today, it is celebrated as a highly regarded cult comedy classic, known for its unique, intellectual, and optimistic perspective on the afterlife. Welcome to Popped. I'm Daniel, the creator and host of Popped, and joining me is my co-host and stand-up comedian extraordinaire, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
All right. You always hit that mark, don't you? Well, we are very excited because we're now starting the fifth, count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth season of Popped. I honestly can't believe it. It's amazing. It's been a great run, and it hasn't been without its trials and tribulations. We've had like months where nothing happened that we should be recording, usually due to technical error. Our hosts in the past have had things like, oh, I don't know, family members dying, etc. Woo, cheerful, right? But yeah, so life always comes first, but we try to do our best to record regularly and put out a good show for those of you that are interested in what we're doing, which is talking about our favorite films, television series. We talk to actors from, all different genres and whatnot on this show, and generally have a great time doing it. So yeah, there you go. We're looking forward to having a really great year in our fifth year. We've got some good films and shows lined up to talk about, and here's a look at some of them. Wow. What'd you think of that? Great stuff, right? Well,
Looks looks amazing and exciting.
well, you faked that really well because we didn't see anything here. You're going to see it, but we don't see it. Movie magic. Yeah. Anyway, popped mail. Here we go. Popped mail. So we don't have any mail. Actually, we got a lot of mail, but all of that was between myself, Colin Cunningham, who was a guest on this show from Stargate SG-1, Savage Steve Holland, who was our guest from Better Off Dead. He was the director of the film, and Diane Franklin, who was also on that film. So that's bitching. Just saying. But I didn't have
Right.
anything from fans who wrote in directly to us. Feel free to write us at poppedreview@gmail.com. Or Eric, what's your email address if they want to write you?
Eric underscore popped kernel, POPPEDKERNEL at Proton Mail, um, proton.me.
Proton.me. All right, we'll
Yeah.
put that up on the screen so people can see it. For those of you listening, hopefully you heard that and that was good enough. But anyway, I digress. We do this podcast in two formats. We have the video, which goes up on YouTube, and we have well, I put on Buzzsprout, and that puts it out to all the podcatchers so you can listen to it on audio. So if you hear us talk about something that's visual, just understand that we have to appease both things. So we'll do our best to remember we've got an audio audience as well. And apparently the podcast has been doing very well on audio lately. I don't know why.
Nice.
We haven't really been promoting it, but we're happy to hear that people are still listening to the audio version of this podcast.
I know I've had plenty of people tell me I've got a face for radio, so
And speaking of which, we'd love hearing from you guys. Please go to our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, what was once Twitter, Blue Sky, you know, TikTok. We're on TikTok. In fact, I will be doing more videos on TikTok now that we've started up again. Eric never stopped. He's still doing those regularly. Um, Feel free to comment and join in on conversations on our YouTube page. People comment all the time and we interact with them. We love that. We love discussing the films. We love talking about what we can do better. Your comments help us do that. So yeah, and don't forget, every like, share, subscribe, all of those things help us get out to other people who might be interested in what we're doing, like you are. So please like, share, and subscribe. I'm sure you
absolutely.
hear it. Yeah, you hear it every time you watch a video or listen to something, and there's a reason people ask for it. We're not just, panhandling. Might I have some more, please? Hey.
And I have officially gained enough followers on TikTok that we can now live stream on TikTok.
Awesome. We should do that soon. We kept saying we were going to do it, and then we realized all the requirements and whatever.
Or at least, I've met the follower criteria to live stream.
That's actually pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
you're being consistent, and that's what matters. Me, on the
Hey,
other hand, not so much. But I'll get on track. Let's see. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about tonight. Eric, why don't
absolutely.
you why don't you lead us in to this film?
Oh, tonight's film, for those of you who are tuning in and haven't read the title of the movie on our header, is an American rom-com fantasy called Defending Your Life from 1991, starring Albert Brooks, Meryl Streep, Rip Torn. It is a man on trial in the afterlife, examining his life's fears to determine if he will be um, reincarnated back to Earth or move on to the next phase of existence into the next higher plane.
Well said. Well
Thank you.
said. Now, theoretically, it's a rom-com. It does have those elements, but I feel like it's so much more than a rom-com. I mean, at its very basic, this film, I believe, is a character study um, like an in-depth sort of look at the internal struggles and the choices and this sort of internal focus on the character Daniel Miller. And I find it much more compelling than any rom-com I've watched. I don't know about you, but you know,
Well,
it's yeah, go ahead.
the idea of having to deal with facing the fears that have controlled you in your lifetime is is an interesting philosophical discussion at the very least.
Right. So you bring up an interesting thing. Let's talk about it, since this is mostly a character study, and I mean it's many other things, but since I personally I feel like that's one of the main driving forces of this film. Let's talk about Daniel Miller's traits. So you start off with him in the beginning of the film talking to his coworkers, and you sort of I didn't like him in the beginning of the film. I felt he was somewhat narcissistic and sarcastic. And I think they did that on purpose. I think it was a good idea. But his main traits that we see is that he's somewhat passive. Um,
Yes.
he doesn't always stand up for himself. And as you said, and the reason that I kind of went to this down this lane is that he allows his personal fears to control his life. Would you attribute anything else to him?
Well, he jokes a lot, but I recognize that as it's a defense mechanism on his part.
Right.
Where he's trying to he doesn't like facing a lot of these weaknesses, and he's trying to make excuses for why he's choosing what he does. And sometimes it's pretty blatant that yeah, he's making excuses for his actions
True.
and not facing or admitting that yeah, it was fear that made him do that.
I agree. The one thing about Daniel in this film, that people can relate to, and for me, not just having the same name, but one of the things we can all relate to is that at some point in our lives, we've all failed to do something or let our fears prevent us from achieving or reaching personal goals, living our best lives, etc. Um, I think that makes him eminently relatable. I think where this film maybe it's probably a film for an older audience because if I think about who I was in my 20s, teens, 20s, I felt invincible. I wasn't thinking about mortality in any way, shape, or form. Um, you know, I think this is going to be for people who are more at the point where, oh, say you've hit your late 30s, early 40s, and suddenly mortality's starting to look at you, like, oh, 50's right around the corner. And then you're 55 and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be 60 soon. And you start thinking, what have you done? What's behind you? What choices have you made? What got you where you are? How much longer do I have? And it raises questions about, is there anything after? What's going to happen? I think that this particular film takes a very interesting look that nobody else has ever done, really. If you think about it, there was always some religious connotation to this sort of afterlife thing that Albert Brooks removes entirely. What do you think?
Uh, I mean, the fact that he's being judged on his fears versus being judged against, some type of like, biblical rule book or guide as to, the morality of his life and how being judged upon if he was good or evil, in based on some, you know, some standard which we just kind of make up on our own anyway,
Right.
versus, hey, did you achieve, did you overcome the basic fear that is holding you back from achieving your potential in your lifetime to get to that next level where you've evolved beyond that, perhaps, not gonna be held back by just fear.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an
you
interesting
know,
idea. Yeah. Sorry,
and
go ahead.
it's something even I think a younger audience could could relate to, just in the terms of maybe opening their eyes to see, hey, maybe I am letting fears control some of my actions. Maybe I shouldn't be so afraid of taking that risk, of taking that chance and seeing where it takes me.
I think it would totally depend on the younger person you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, when I was younger, I felt I was invincible for a long time. It wasn't until my late 30s that I started realizing, oh, that can hurt, you know? Um, and I look at a lot of the videos that these younger people are putting out today, where they're climbing up to the tallest possible spot and taking selfies, and I'm thinking, wow, you're an absolute idiot. I don't relate to you at all. In fact, I watch those, and the first thing that happens is I pucker, you know. Um, and God forbid that fear is the reason that I can't move on, because I'm never getting rid of this fear of heights that I can see. Um, but I think, and I'll get into this later, I think it's really more about carpe diem and about seizing the day than it is about fear. I think
Mhm.
the fear is preventing you from seizing the day. So I don't think that a phobia necessarily is going to be, the thing that prevents you from going on, even though they do bring up his speaking in front of people in public to be a phobia. Um, I definitely have stage fright, yet I've been a performing musician for, decades. And I also took speech class and kind of got over that fear. So I guess it's possible to get past things. And it really depends on whether or not you took the effort to get past those things. But I think quality of life and carpe diem to me are the central ideas behind that fear, as opposed to just being afraid.
Yeah, I mean, it's fear is going to always play a major part in, you know, choosing, it's a risk assessment. Is this worth, swallowing that fear down to deal with what is holding you back there? I mean, I too also suffer like frightening paralyzing stage fright at times.
Right.
And but at the same time, yeah, I've chosen hobbies which put me in front of audiences. Um, you
Your
know,
TikToks alone.
yeah.
I mean, you're
To,
you're putting yourself out there to be judged. People like them or they follow you or this, that, or the other. And it's kind of a nice feeling when they follow you and they comment and take part in what you're doing.
oh yeah, absolutely. It's terrifying because
Yep.
it's that like, oh my God, are they judging me? Are they looking at me and seeing the same flaws that I do? Are they even flaws that I know, only I'm noticing and only
Well,
I'm bothered by?
and especially in today's environment, because if you look at a lot of social media, it's completely toxic. There are people that exist on social media purely for the idea of getting on there and trashing what you're saying and doing. So,
Absolutely.
you know, and when you put yourself out there like that, you open yourself to that sort of criticism and, yeah, hopefully you can handle it. So I know we've gotten a couple comments from people in the past, and I was like, wow, where did that come from? And I could tell that some of them were aimed at constructive criticism, and others were just aimed to completely annihilate us. So,
Yes.
I find the ones that are aimed to annihilate us a little bit more entertaining, and just chalk it up. But whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I so far I've kind of been a little bit negative about what doesn't work, what works against the film, and for me personally, it's that I don't feel that the themes of death and fear are universal to a younger audience. Some people maybe, like you pointed out, but I don't think really you start looking at mortality and those things until later in life. Maybe there might be some people who get focused on it early, but I felt like that was something that might have worked against who might go see this film. But let's talk about what makes the film work. So the idea that there's this limbo between earth and heaven or whatever the ascension is, they don't really say, do they?
No.
Um, is this sort of corporate environment, you know, with all the little terracotta buildings and whatnot, with trams, Disneyland trams, and that you're represented by an attorney who helps defend your life. It's not only funny, but it's thought provoking. Because if this is truly how it works, like I said, I'm a bit screwed with some of the fears I have. But
See you back on Earth.
Yeah, right. I mean, how many times have I been here? You know, pretty sure I've been a cat a few times in my life. Must have fallen to my death too. I don't know. But anyway,
Oh,
so,
I've seen how my cat lives. I could dream of being a cat one day.
yeah, cat's got it made, man. I've got three here. I had four, but now I have three. Long rest Leo. He was such a sweet boy. But
Hmm.
the things that worked for me were the absolute absence of religion. And being a survivor of a somewhat culty like religion, I've seen firsthand that many religions believe that the afterlife is their province, not anyone else's. Like, it's my people going there, not yours. By taking the religion out and making this sort of afterlife for everybody, I think that really helps make this film work.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Well, how about you?
I I've only recently, I mean, based on your recommendation for this movie, is when I first saw the film. And it's only been fairly recently that I watched it. And it wasn't what I expected. It was very different. Um, I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be a much different judgment, not based on fears, but based upon moralities of based of religions, and how they were going to defend being a good person versus, oh, did you evolve past your fears?
You know, it's
Um,
it's interesting you bring that up because I feel like, and I don't know if Albert Brooks did this intentionally or not, but there's the character who's in the sushi place with him that is the guy who coined the phrase all nude on the strip clubs, right? And he's looking at something like 15 days or something ridiculous. And I felt like it, without realizing it, he may have actually made a morality jab
hmm,
because here's a guy that you know is not going to make it. He's not going back. And there was nothing about his fear in why you think he's not going to make it, right? He's got 15 days, but
mhm,
he's all about how he took advantage of things in the world. And that had nothing to do with fear. So
hmm,
in a way, there was sort of a cautionary tale about morality, but it wasn't the theme of the film by any means. I'm
no.
sorry to sidetrack there, but that what you just said really brought me into that moment. And I had that as a little sub note here. So go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, 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 it's fine. I mean, there were definitely, I mean, it's a much slower moving film than I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
There were definitely parts where I've just kind of sitting there staring at the scene, kind of going, why are we spending so much time here? And I didn't quite understand why these scenes were necessary. And then getting on to, and you try to, you know, okay, let's get on to the next, let's move on to the next scene
If
to
I
get to
might,
the,
I think that's intentional pacing. You got to consider when this film was made. It was 1991.
yes.
Back then, good filmmaking was not how much you can dice up a film and splice it back together to make a 2 hour long trailer. Back then, letting a film breathe and creating space in the dialogue and reaction time was much more important than editing something so quickly that you tell the story in 10 seconds so all the action can happen, right? And I actually miss this kind of filmmaking.
Mm,
This is more my ballpark. I think, you know, people have gotten used to the Christopher Nolan school of like, let me just dice the film up until it's unrecognizable. And who's
mhm,
that other guy? Michael Bay. I, I, as much as those guys have done stylistically for filmmaking, I think they've also destroyed it in a way that
mm,
it takes personally. I find that, and I'm just going to use a very strong word here. I hate that type of filmmaking. It because people have become so reliant on it that they no longer let their films breathe. And it's all about cutting as quickly as you can to the next thought process. It's like having, you know, just spitting out everything that's going to happen as quickly as possible so you can fit as much crap into the film as you can. And I miss the days where we could get a film like this, where there were comedic pauses, beats for you to think and reflect. And I think that's why this film is intentionally paced the way it is. It's going to be hard for today's audience, I think, to watch this film um, and not think what you're thinking right now.
Well,
So
there were definitely some very good scenes which I enjoyed, but at the same time, there were a few things which just I felt just kind of dragged, and I didn't I it kind of lost me in that pacing.
there were a couple
So,
moments I think that could have been definitely shortened or cut
mhm,
even, but I feel that this is kind of an area that you and I maybe disagree on. But not like we're at a war disagreement.
yeah,
It's just more like I appreciate that old time sort of pacing. So
yeah.
okay,
Oh no, there was definitely good stuff. I mean, overall, you know, coming out of this film, I definitely had a good feeling about it.
okay.
So, so
Well,
yeah.
let's talk about some other positive aspects of this film. The casting to me in this film is extraordinary. Uh, you have people that aren't necessarily well known, but who are perfect for the roles they're playing.
Hmm.
Rip Torn is one of those guys that just he brings a quirky, weird character, to this role, and he's just eminently likable as Bob Diamond, the defense attorney, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he also comes across as kind of a bit of a shyster who is, very skilled at getting his defendant through the process. And he doesn't like this prosecutor because she's very shrewd and is very good at her job. And I think Lena Horne, I think that's her name, is she's also extremely well cast. And having watched the special edition, because I do have right here, I have the Criterion collection of version of this film. There's sort of there's some special features on here, and Albert Brooks is talking about the process of casting these people, and she was his choice. Like from the beginning, she was the only person he wanted. He felt like her, no nonsense approach and just her demeanor was this character. As far as Rip Torn goes, he had to push the studio to audition him with a bunch of other actors. But this Rip Torn was who he wanted. It was just a matter of the studio, putting him through.
Hmm.
So I love those characters. And Meryl Streep, you put Meryl Streep in just about anything, I'll watch it. I really enjoy her as an actress. Uh, she's absolutely bubbly and effervescent in this film, which is a complete opposite of, say, her in Devil Wears Prada,
Hmm.
or in what's we're going to be reviewing Death Becomes Her later on this season
Hmm.
for Tony, who wrote in and asked for Death Becomes Her. So Tony, guess what? We're doing it. Um, but that's, he didn't write
That
in. Sorry,
was
he
yeah.
commented.
Yeah.
Um,
There
but
was also Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice, wasn't it?
yes, well, I
Yes.
mean, she's been in everything you can possibly think of, and
Yeah.
uh, Albert Brooks getting her cast was because he was at a party at Carrie Fisher's house, and Meryl Streep just happened to be there, and he was watching her talk, and he said, and in person, she's very much like this character from the film.
Hmm.
He wasn't thinking she'd be in the film, but he got introduced and they got to talking on what they're working on. He said, "Oh, I'm about to do this film." And she says, "Oh, is there a part in it for me?" And he thought, "Oh, she's joking. She's kidding. She doesn't really mean that." And the more he thought about it, he's like, "Well, if she was just the person she was at that party, she's perfect for this role." So he went through channels through the studio and she accepted the part. So it's kind of cool how Meryl Streep, this big name ends up in this film with a bunch of no names other than Albert Brooks, who's fairly well recognized for his films. So
I
yeah,
believe at the time Meryl Streep was much better well known as a dramatic actress. You didn't necessarily see her in a lot of comedy, but she's always, I think, pushed the envelope as to what she could do. I mean, I remember when, she was getting cast into musicals and comedies, and people were just like, "Oh my God, Meryl Streep?"
right. Yeah. So the casting, I think, really helped this film in a lot of ways. How do you feel about the casting?
I like the characters. I like the act. I liked. I mean, I'm not that familiar with a lot of the supporting actors in the film. But yeah, I recognized Rip Torn, but I remember Rip Torn going back into my early childhood when he would show up on game shows and just be the weirdo who would just be throwing confetti around the stage. And
Wait,
was that Rip Torn?
I don't know that that was Rip Torn. I
Oh,
know who you're thinking of. Um, the it was the
wasn't it?
Most Beautiful Woman show or something like that.
I
Rip.
don't remember. I
It
don't
was
remember specifically,
Rip
but
Curl. No, Rip. What was that guy's name?
I don't
Um,
know. I thought it was Rip Torn, honestly. But yeah, but at some point I started noticing, okay, Rip Torn
Rip
is being
Taylor.
Rip. Okay, yes.
That's Rip Taylor.
Sorry, my bad. Ah,
Yeah.
okay,
I was gonna
different
say,
guy.
and I honestly, I know that he's done a lot of things, but I think he was mostly a serious actor as well. He was
Okay,
mostly a character actor.
yes.
But that's funny that you heard Rip and immediately went to that guy. Oh, there's going to be
Probably, probably because
Eric.
my childhood.
I promise you, I'm going to find a little clip and throw that
It's
in there just so people can laugh really hard.
Come on, we're getting old here.
We are, but we can still
The
laugh at ourselves, my friend.
the memory is not as sharp as it used to be.
We can still laugh at ourselves, and
But
that's one
yes,
that you should definitely find some humor in.
but yes, Rip Torn, I think he was the guy in Dodgeball.
Hmm.
He was also the chief in the Men in Black films.
Yep.
And I think somewhere along the ways he just started excelling as this suited administrator type role
Yeah, I think a lot of
of
it will have had to do with
yeah,
this appearance because this sort of changed the game for him, I think.
mhm, yeah, yeah, and he definitely excels in that. Absolutely.
Yeah. He died in 2019.
Mhm.
And he had a storied career and a storied life. There's a lot of trivia facts about Rip Torn that we're not going to put into this film, but maybe we'll put them in the comment section of the video. Um, but he was a hellraiser, this guy.
Yes. Hmm.
So I really like the casting of him. There's another appearance in this by Buck Henry,
Hmm.
who played the substitute counselor, right? The guy who was defending Daniel.
Yes.
And the gag was that he did nothing. He was supposed to be a genius, but he just sat there and never said anything. And I mean that's subtle humor because there's always that guy, right? That in our lives that is supposed to be this genius that I mean, what do they do? Are they actually doing anything? Um, I think a lot of corporate positions, especially the higher up you get, are filled with this guy.
Mhm.
But I found it funny. He made a lot of appearances on Saturday Night Live, and Buck Henry was in quite a few films, Heaven Can Wait and whatnot. Um, and he passed away not too long ago as well. And getting back to things that worked for this film, um, Albert Brooks chose to write, direct, and star in the film. And that doesn't always work, right? But I feel like this helps keep the film on point because it's such a very specific narrative. It's such a very specific point of view that he's trying to get across that if some other director had done this, I don't know if he'd been able to tap into the elements the way that Brooks wanted. And you find directors they want to change things sometimes, and work towards mass appeal for audiences. And I think sometimes stuff should just be left intact. I mean, Albert Brooks did make changes, mind you. This originally was not a love story. I mean, there was a subplot love story, but this movie was supposed to end, according to Albert Brooks, with Daniel reincarnated as a cow in a pasture, right? Because
Moo.
you're right. These are sort of the endings that Albert Brooks is famous for, is these really kind of dark, weird, what the fuck endings.
Hmm.
And he said that basically the love story sort of wrote the ending for him. And I'm kind of glad it did because I really enjoy the way this film ends, I find myself emotionally invested. And the swelling, the music's amazing in this film, but the swelling of the music and Daniel finally overcoming that fear, especially after you watch him fail his entire life, right?
Mm.
To this moment, this pivotal moment at the end of the film, I think it really illustrates that at any point, you can always turn something around in your life or your death in this instance. And it gives you a lot of hope and a lot of feel good at the end of the film. And there's especially these days, I mean, most films are not made these days to make you feel good. The endings definitely, in many of the films I've seen recently, have been very dark. So it's nice to have something along these lines where you do get sort of a nice, light, uplifting ending, and you see a character, quote unquote, rescued. How do you feel about that? And I was initially talking about writing and directing in it, but that
Mm.
transition into this sort of this is became a love story that
Mhm.
wasn't necessary originally.
Well, not to, I mean, it's a, what is it now? 20, gosh, no, 30 some odd year old film. So I think we're okay talking about spoilers and the ending of the
Oh
film
yeah, yeah.
at
Well,
this point.
I think if we talk about a film that's more than 20 years old, it's okay to give the spoilers in it. Um, I mean, hell, even maybe 10 years.
Mm.
But we haven't
Okay.
really, that's kind of an unwritten rule we have here on the show, isn't it? We don't do our spoilers on the Patreon thing, but we haven't really talked about what our cutoff is on this show.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, there was a point where I was ready to tune out on this movie because the it was just moving from scene to scene for me, and I was just, okay, when are we getting to the trial where he really does start to defend himself and defend, the choices that he's made? And the last 10 minutes of this film brought me all the way back. And that scene when he literally like doesn't have anything left to lose and he jumps out of the tram and is pounding on the door to risk everything for that moment, that nearly brought me to tears, honestly.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would
it
say
was,
same, same.
yeah, it was
It's
just this like, wow.
it definitely makes the tears well up. It doesn't quite make them fall for me, but I definitely get that,
Yeah,
choked up emotional feeling because I think it's
yeah.
very well done.
And
Um,
that scene honestly sold the rest of the movie to me. It's like,
nice.
oh, okay, that scene is amazing.
But you had to make
And
it through the entire film.
but I had to make it through everything up to that point.
See, I guess that's good that there's something out there for everybody because for me, I was more interested initially in these weird concepts of what the afterlife was. I thought some of them were absolutely absurd and ridiculous, but they made
Mhm.
me chuckle because, Albert Brooks's mind and the stuff that he thinks of, you know, eh, I find humorous, but I never would have thought of, how much bowling can you do in the afterlife? And oh, all you can eat buffets and stuff like that. These
Mm.
on-running gags that he has in this film, I feel like they endear me to the film a lot more and to Albert Brooks himself,
Yeah.
knowing that he's the writer, the director, and the main actor. Because if I was to go off of just the character from the beginning of the film, I wouldn't have liked Daniel Miller, you
Hmm.
know. It's the fact that he's able to play this character that's sort of this, lousy woo-woo down in the dirt guy but still have the tenacity to come up with all these gags and all this stuff to throw around him and to react off of, I felt was just really superior storytelling and really fun. I think Albert Brooks in real life, I don't know what he's probably like. Maybe he's miserable, who knows, but um, watching this film makes me want to know the guy.
Mm.
So there's that. But let's talk about the gags, right?
Okay.
So this film is full of sight gags and not just sight gags, but actual like in your face gags.
Yes.
I think one of the first ones that I always remember when I think back is, "You remind me of my poodle," right? The old lady
Hmm.
in the tram, and she's sitting there talking to him like an old person does. And I think it's interesting because you see him, and she's like, "Oh, so young. Was it AIDS?" You know, E- everybody else around him is an octogenarian or older,
Yeah.
and here's this guy. You know, what other gags stood out to you?
I mean, okay, there were two gags which stood out to me, not necessarily because they were great, but like, okay, the first one because I read the story of why this gag was included, and it's in the afterlife when they go to this comedy club,
Mhm.
and you have essentially the world's worst comic on stage. And from what I've read, this was actually a tribute that Albert Brooks wrote for his father. Um,
All right,
as
so hold on. Can I cut you
Mhm.
off there real quick? Because this
Sure.
is this is my did you catch that?
Yeah.
And I'll correct something for you real quick
Hmm.
because I just finished watching Albert Brooks in an interview talk about this.
Yes.
And he was
Excellent.
asked, "Was this actually a nod to your dad?"
Hmm.
Uh, I died on stage like you. And he's like, "Oh yeah, but that's my dad." Albert Brooks' father, Harry Einstein, was a comedian who
Hmm.
died on stage. However, the joke was unintentional. Uh,
Hmm.
he said that the more people talk about it or bring it up as a clever idea of his, the more he wants to take credit for it and say it was intentional, but
Hmm.
it wasn't.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that it's a good point you bring up, because it was in my did you catch that,
Hmm.
and you caught it. So good
Yes.
job.
And if that was intentional, it's a brilliant moment. But even if it wasn't intentional, that interaction with the comic on stage, I think we've all, those of us that have gone to comedy shows and watched stand-ups or tried to even do stand-up, we've had those death on stage moments of, so how'd you die on stage like I am right now?
Yeah, it was great, and maybe it was subconscious. Maybe he did
Mhm.
it not even thinking about it, but it was still underneath somewhere because he did write it. So
Yes.
everything in this film is some part of him from somewhere.
Hmm.
So other
Huh.
gags that stood out. One of the other ones I really liked was when he and Bob Diamond are sitting at the table, and I always wondered why Bob Diamond didn't bring this to the table, because obviously he's like, "Oh, I didn't know we were taking things from here." So maybe this is why he didn't do it. But Daniel wants to taste what he's eating.
Hmm.
He's like, "Kind of tastes like horse shit, doesn't it?" He's like, when you're really smart, you start to manipulate your taste buds, and it's like, what the hell? I mean, that was a laugh out loud moment for me because,
Okay.
I mean, why? I don't know. What
Yeah, it that just struck me as a very weird scene. And
I
there's a
just
few
came
of
from a
those.
world with penis envy. Now everybody's got brain envy.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Um,
yeah, go ahead. Other gags. Other gags.
um, Goodness. There was one which I didn't understand, which was when he's having dinner on his the day before, the night before his last day on trial, and the maitre d keeps bringing him takeout food, like food in takeout containers, and demanding he take it with him.
Yes, it
Uh,
was the idea of the pushy Italian guy trying to get you to eat. Mangia, mangia, eat more food, eat more food. Oh, I'm gonna go
yeah.
get you a bunch of pies. I like you, right? And he doesn't listen to him,
Hmm.
which annoys Daniel because he's afraid at that point. And this is done to illustrate that he's still afraid of the judgment from his prosecutor, right? He's afraid that people are going to see him with all these pies, and what are they going to think of him? Some glutton who eats a bunch of pies. It's subtext.
Oh.
And that's what you're supposed to be drawing from this is he's afraid that people are going to judge him for getting all these pies. Oh, I don't want them. Well, yeah, he does want them. That's kind of the gag there, is that he does want this stuff, but he also doesn't want to appear a certain way to people. And he's afraid of how they're going to judge him.
Huh. Okay, I totally missed that then, because it seemed to me it's his last night. And
Why not?
From my own perspective of having a small teenage child who would pack leftovers at every meal that we went to so that she could bring them home and we could throw them away at home after they sat in the fridge for 5 days.
Yep.
And it's this, why did we pack all this food and bring it home if we're just throwing it out the next day? And since it's his last night in Judgment City, he can't take it with him. So that's going to waste.
That's the gag, though. If you think about it, and you can eat anything you want as much as you want, I'm assuming that you're not going to get the indigestion, that comes with it down here on Earth, because you can eat all you want. And being able to take all those pies home and just gluttonously eat them on your last day there, why not?
Okay.
Right?
Okay, it didn't even occur to me that you never get that, like, your full moment.
I don't think you do. I think that's why that's the long-going gag. It's like, well, what do you think, heaven would be like? Well, you could eat all you want and never get fat and never have to answer for it, right?
Interesting.
So I do think that's kind of where they were going with it. Whether or not it was obvious or not, I don't know. I felt like a lot of that was subtext.
Okay.
The food, of course, is perfect. The most perfect cheese omelet ever, which he got one bite of before he had to go meet Bob Diamond. It's part of these clever gags that are constantly going on. Eating all you can. Another gag that went on a lot that I really enjoyed was the differences between the hotels, right? She's looking at 4 or 5 days, something like that, and he's looking at 9. She gets to stay in the Majestic, this hotel with a hot tub inside the bathroom. It looks absolutely wonderful. I think it was the Ambassador in LA where they filmed that.
Okay.
But everything about her hotel, like they're serving caviar, she gets these luxurious chocolates on her pillow. He gets breath mints. His place looks like the Holiday Inn, It's
not
just
that there's anything wrong with the Holiday Inn, but still.
No, but it's this great visual gag that they do, visual and audio gag, but his reaction to it is what makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Right? It's where he starts to really see the difference between somebody who is probably going to go on and somebody who may not go on, right? Let's see, what else? Oh, another big gag that I thought was really enjoyable. And this will be one of those things that if you're from a certain generation, will stick out to you. But say if you're in the 30 or under crowd now, who the hell is Shirley MacLaine?
Yes.
Right? So they go to the past life pavilions. And what is Shirley MacLaine known for? Writing books about her past lives and her spirituality and whatnot. So, New Age spirituality. So that was apparently when they did the test screenings and when this opened up in the theater, that is the thing that got the biggest laugh.
Yes.
In 1991. I guarantee you, if you put this on the theaters today, most people would not even know why it was funny, right?
It's an amazing drop off of certain generational knowledge and culture that, people under the age of 30, they don't have a connection to people like Shirley MacLaine.
This is one of the reasons that I like to choose a lot of these older films to talk about, is because they're not in the public consciousness anymore. When's the last time you heard somebody talking to you about defending your life? And there you go.
Aside from you, no,
and
nobody.
For me, people who are like, what would be a good film to watch, etc. This is why you want to watch this film, is because of all these reasons. Or maybe this is why you don't want to watch it. Like you pointed out, pacing might be a thing for some people, but it's bringing these things back into the public consciousness to talk about again, because hey, we found them interesting in our lifetimes. Maybe you will too. Which leads me to something else here. We kind of got to move on because we're talking long, which I don't mind. But I also don't want the editing nightmare of where do I cut this? But
Sorry about that.
It's all right. I started with a did you catch that? And I have one more. And that did you catch that was the thing that you brought up, which I thought was great, was about Albert Brooks' father. And Albert's real name is Albert Einstein. But anyway, his brother, Albert Brooks' brother, is the late Bob Einstein. Do you know who he is?
No idea.
Also known as Super Dave Osborne.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this was the guy who would perform all these stunts and was rather naive about the stunts and would always end up getting injured. It was a character he created and did many a special with. And he also appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm as Marty Funkhauser.
Okay.
So Bob died in 2019 at 76 years old.
Wow.
But he showed up. I think he's in this film, and so is another relative of Albert Brooks. But that's my did you catch that? Did you? And my other one was actually in the film, but you caught it. So what do you have? Any did you catch that?
Nothing that we haven't already talked about and brought up, aside from perhaps every time the tram would appear, I would have weird flashbacks to either Universal Studios or
Disneyland,
or the old Disneyland trams.
That was intentional. That was intentional.
I wasn't sure.
He wanted this afterworld to seem somewhat like a theme park in a sense. But here's a did you catch that? So the trams, I noticed in the beginning of the film when these people show up and they're in that vegetative state, they're not seat belted in. There's no doors to the trams, right? You would think that that'd be the time you want them seat belted in with doors, because if they can't keep themselves from falling over, they can barely walk, right? But in the end of the film, when they're getting sent on to their destinations, they've got like that locking seat belt and then the doors electrified shut. You can't open them. And I thought that was interesting. But granted, trams are different.
Yeah, granted, but it's that last tram to take you back to Earth, or is probably the time when they would experience the most panicked people that want to risk jumping out.
That's a good point.
When you're a vegetable and you're not even aware of yourself, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, we've all had those at the anesthesiologists give us the drugs that it's a good thing I have seatbelts. Barely talk.
Could have done without that.
What could you have done without, Eric? You said you had something.
I've already mentioned the restaurant gag just because I didn't understand it. So for me, cutting that scene wouldn't have, it wouldn't have hurt or helped it would have helped the pacing, and that it would have sped it up for me. But I didn't get that gag, so that's why I would have cut that.
Speaking of which could have been on the could have done without that. Those pies that he supposedly took with him? Did you see where he left them?
No.
He leaves them in the lobby at the Majestic.
Okay. And
in the special features, Albert Brooks was talking about when they did the test screenings and people would write their thought process. He's like, I'm looking for all these great insights into this film. And he says, and 14 of these things were, why did you leave the pies in the lobby? And he's like, the pie, why? The pies, really?
Because we couldn't do another great pie fight.
But he was just shocked that, people cared whether or not he took those pies with him. But people pay attention to stuff like that, especially when it's a big gag, right? Especially when you maybe didn't understand the gag. Well, he's got all these pies. What's he going to do with them?
True.
So, all right, I could have done without that. And this is kind of murky. This I could have done without that, but it has to do with the idea that fear is something you have to defend. because I find fear is an oversimplification of what someone might be on trial for. Like, fear is like a necessary reaction sometimes to something that might be painful or could lead to unwanted circumstances. It's your body telling you, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I think that's a good thing at times. The idea of crippling fear, that's different. Or not seizing opportunity and living your life to the fullest is more the concept that I would have gone with. And I think that's really where the film is trying to tell you it's going. But they're using fear but unfortunately to me, that just feels very reductive. Like, oh, it's fear. Well, no, it's carpe diem. It's seize the day. It's make the best of your opportunities and don't let your fear get in the way of you doing that. So I just feel like saying it's fear is reductive and doesn't give you enough, right? So that's my could have done without that. I wish they had he had maybe come up with a different way to explain that, because you see people say no fear all the time, and it just leads to them doing stupid shit. But right?
True.
So that's my $2. We're talking about the afterlife, right? We're talking about a potential afterlife, and a lot of films have tackled this subject or hinted at it. So we got a top 5 here, and both of us are going to list off our top 5 afterlife films. And we'll cue that here. All right, so I'm going to list off the correct top 5 afterlife films. Thank you, Wes Chatham. I'm going to do this every time until you comment or you say something, because we love you. Yeah. Anyway, top 5 afterlife films. These are not necessarily films that I think are specifically in the afterlife, but feature the afterlife in some shape or form. So I'm going to go with my number 5 will be The Sixth Sense, for obvious reasons. And I guess I'm going to say now, spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, shame on you. But the big reveal in this thing is, he's the ghost. So it's very much about the afterlife and this kid who can see dead people. Great film. What was that, 1999? Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment. Love it. Of course, my number 4 is going to be Beetlejuice, 1988. Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara, rest in peace. And the father, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, from Ferris Bueller, turned out to be a kitty diddler. Yeah, very disappointing. Oh, and of course, Michael Keaton. Can't forget him. My number 3. So this one is kind of controversial for me, because I would rate it higher just because of the visuals, because I love the main actor in the film. Met him, great guy. But the film depresses me so badly when I watch it that I will never probably ever watch it again. I even own it, but I'll probably not watch it again, because it brings me to tears in the worst possible way. It makes me so damn sad. And that's What Dreams May Come. It's an absolutely beautiful film. Robin Williams is wonderful in it. Sadly, it deals with the subject of suicide and what happens to people when they do suicide. And of course, we know in the real world, Robin Williams committed suicide. So this is just it's a quadruple whammy for me of a film to watch. Just makes me feel so sad, but it's a beautiful film. Number 2 is 1978's Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. I love this film when I was a kid. Even though it centers around the LA Rams, screw them. I'm a Niners fan, and I always will be. But it's a great film, and Warren Beatty did so good in this role. By the way, Buck Henry, who was in this film, was also in Heaven Can Wait. Maybe that's the correlation. Maybe that's why he wanted Buck Henry in this film. Who knows? But it's just there's a screw up in heaven, because they screw up all the time, right?
Mhm.
And this guy gets called up a little early, so to fix it, they send him back in somebody else's body, and it's a good story, very good story.
Mhm.
Now, my number one, I've also met this actor. Well, I wouldn't say met. We locked eyes at the Academy Awards when I was working for Dick Clark Productions. And it was a weird moment for me because I was like, what is going on here?
Mhm.
But the film is Ghost, 1990, Patrick Swayze. Demi Moore was in the film as well. And I love this movie. It's just fun. It's funny. It's dark. Back then it was a little even scary at times. Um, Willie Loman Prospect Place, what's her name? Whoopi Goldberg
Yes.
was absolutely phenomenal in this film. It's one of those films that I can watch, I can laugh at, but also the ending, just gets you when she finally sees him again.
Mhm.
The love inside, you take it with you. Just such a powerful, just wonderful film. And
I was absolutely terrified when the shadows came out and
right?
grabbed Willie and dragged him off.
It
That
was
was terrifying.
it was absolutely terrifying. The funny thing is, if you watch it now, those special effects do not hold up,
No.
and it
But
looks rather silly, but it's still terrifying.
yeah, absolutely.
And of course, there's Carl, right?
Mm.
I can't remember the actor's name. I keep wanting to call him Aidan Quinn because he looks like him, but it's not Aidan Quinn. But he was also very, very good in that role,
Mhm.
playing the betrayer. Why don't you give me your top five, and then what we'll do is we'll give our honorable mentions afterwards.
Okay. All right. There's going to be a lot of familiar films on this one because a lot of overlap.
Excellent.
My top five. We're starting with 2005, The Corpse Bride. Just because that one, the afterlife, just seems like such a beautiful place in that particular film, and reality just seemed so dreary. And it's Tim Burton. It's and his usual cast of characters.
I
Johnny
didn't even
Depp.
think of that one, and I have to tell you, that's an excellent pick.
Yes, that was my number five. Number four on my list is Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore.
Hurrah!
Yep. Number three, which almost falls in line with my previous two, is Beetlejuice, which you also picked.
Hmm.
Number two is The Sixth Sense, which I just have to rank that a little higher.
You're
because
right. We do have a lot of overlap.
I like that one. So so far 3 out of your 5 are also on my list. The number one film on my list, which did not make your list, which surprised me a little bit, is 1989 Field of Dreams,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that does
which
feel
I
like
see
afterlife.
as an afterlife film in terms of the ball players and
I liked it. I don't know if it would make my top five. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But
No,
both of us
yeah.
committed the crime again of the film we're talking about not being in our top five. Because I
Sure.
would have to pull What Dreams May Come and put it in my honorable mentions and put Defending Your Life at probably 3.
Hmm.
Or maybe 2. Yeah, maybe 2. Because I really do enjoy this film. But the only reason I'd pull What Dreams May Come out of the top 5 is just because I can't watch it, And maybe that makes it a
Understandable.
better film. But at the same time, I don't want to be so depressed after watching something and, just completely wrecked. But that's
Yes.
me.
Yes, absolutely. I totally
Uh,
get that.
So let's go with our honorable mentions. Let's go back and forth here instead of just listing them all. My first one on my honorable mentions list is The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox, 1996. How about you?
Yes. Also had The Frighteners on my honorable mention list.
Excellent. All right. Good job. The Others, 2001 with Nicole Kidman and
Excellent.
Aidan Quinn. Or no, not Aidan Quinn. Sorry. The first Doctor, Christopher, uh, from the new Doctor Who series.
No.
Christopher Eccleston. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Did not have that one on my list. My next honorable mention is 1993 Robert Downey Jr. film called Heart and Souls.
Ooh.
Yes. Um,
I don't think I saw it. So
oh, it's a wonderful little film. Uh, not it's got some flaws, but it as far as you know, afterlife movies, it's definitely worth a look. It
very
it's
cool.
it's better than I think people give it credit for.
Huh. Yeah. Would Flatliners count as an afterlife film?
Marginally.
Marginally. No, it's more about sort of dealing with your own ghosts and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, next on my list is 2012's Paranorman,
Oh,
which I really enjoyed.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
My next honorable mention is a small film called Ghost Town
Hmm.
with darn, I can't remember his name. English guy. Is it Ricky Gervais? Is it?
He's definitely English.
Yeah. He's a dentist that has a near-death experience and and starts seeing ghosts
I think I've seen
in his
this.
vicinity. Yeah, and he has
Yes.
to. Yeah, it's 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 strangely touching, but it didn't make my top five.
Yeah, it's funny as we're doing this honorable mention, other films are coming to my mind, and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
why didn't I think of that? The Discovery 2017.
Mm,
Um, and then it's just I'm being hit with like all these other films that I should have thought of, like the Haunted Mansion, the Disney's
true.
Haunted Mansion films, which were funny in their own way,
Hmm.
or at least good films about the afterlife.
Yeah,
So yeah, I could probably go on for a long time if you really think about it.
yeah.
Um, hmm. Anyway,
Do you
yeah,
have
that's
any other
that's some good stuff. But
any more?
honest, no, do you have more?
I've got
Ah,
two and a half more.
all right, go for it.
Um, the next honorable mention on my list is a film uh which lingers in the back of my mind, another Robert Downey Jr. film called Chances Are,
Hmm.
with him and Sybil
Okay.
Shepherd. Um, that's another one of those something goes wrong in heaven and he comes back in another body. Um, next on my honorable mention list, just because it has this moment that hits hard for me in terms of sci-fi, is Event Horizon,
Oh, okay.
which
Yeah, I could see that one.
definitely
That
definitely can see that as a
not even on my radar for those type of films, but now that you bring it up, yeah,
mhm,
okay.
yeah. And the last film on my honorable mention afterlife film list, because I loved this story as a child. I read the novel. I fell in love with the story in the novel. I never got to see the movie until decades later, and the movie was so disappointing. But only because I loved the story
Wait, but
does.
what is it?
The film is a Chevy Chase movie called Oh Heavenly Dog.
Oh
It
my
stars
God.
Chevy Chase and Benji, and Jane
Oh wow.
Seymour as one of her early film roles in this
Oh,
movie.
good Lord.
And it was such a cute story as a kid reading this as a novel. And I read it
So
over and
the
over and
novel
over
makes your
again.
honorable mentions, not the film.
Yes,
All
but
right.
the
You're
film,
cheating.
but when I watched the film just so disappointing,
Oh
which
my
is why
God.
it never makes my top five list.
Wow. Thinking of Chevy Chase films, I loved Modern Problems, but not an afterlife film. And we are
Mhm.
so off topic now. Speaking of which, there's only one thing left to do. Let's get to popping. All right, Eric. You know the music's going. It's up to you.
Pop, 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 pop.
Kinda, yeah. So I ain't dancing. Took an arrow
Not
to the
today.
knee. All right, so yeah, Eric, Defending Your Life, 1991 Albert Brooks
Hmm.
Written, directed, starred in Meryl Streep, Rip Torn, Lena Horne, Buck Henry. A lot of gags. What do you give this
Hmm.
film and why?
Okay. For most of this film, I would have given it 3 pops, but with the ending hitting as hard as it did for me, I'm gonna bump it up to 4 pops with because of the ending. And
Excellent.
that made me love that scene, and that boosted the whole film for me.
Well, you know, that's exactly probably why, exactly probably, that's probably why Albert Brooks went with the romantic ending that he did, because it sort of wrote itself and it did exactly what you needed it to do, which is wonderful. For me, I give this film 4.5 pops. Not 5, it's not a perfect film. As you pointed out, there are moments where it does drag a bit. But for me, Defending Your Life is a film I put on when I want to be cheered up. Yeah, it can be depressing and you feel bad for Daniel, but ultimately he does the one thing that makes everything all right, showing that even a sad sack like him can turn it around by making the right choice. And we all need that feeling at some point. The film makes me laugh, and the dry, sarcastic delivery of Albert Brooks just takes me where I want to be. Meryl Streep, her giddiness, Rip Torn's quirky character and humor, the absurdity of the setting, the gags, they all land for me and turn it into a film that I watch when I want to feel better about the complete ball of crap that life is sometimes. So, yeah, this is a good film for me. 4.5 pops.
Excellent, excellent. And I will never again mistake Rip Torn for Rip Taylor.
Oh, he's going in right
Wow.
here. Throwing the glitter.
How many people are there named Rip? Honestly, I
Maybe we
figured it
should.
had to be the same guy.
Maybe that's something we need to do a deep dive into. How many rips are there in the world? But I mean, Rip Torn, obviously a stage. It's got to be a stage name. What is his real
Absolutely.
name?
It must be.
Elmore Rule Rip Torn Jr.
He needed
Elmore.
a junior.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, there you have it. Eric, would you recommend people watch this film?
uh, I would recommend it, and with the caveat of yes, you have to push through to the end because that makes it all worth it.
Very well said. I'm going to say I would recommend this film and say that if you're younger, be patient. This film does deliver eventually. If you're older and you love the idea of trying to figure out what the afterlife's going to look like, probably not like this, but who knows? If you've ever been to the DMV, maybe this is what it's going to look like. So I'm looking forward to this season. We've got some good stuff in store. We showed you in the montage earlier what we're going to do. For those of you on audio, apologize, but you know, maybe you'll get it. Maybe if they're clips, you'll get it from the clips. Um, if it's just a montage, well, it's just going to sound like music. Uh, we possibly have
Yeah.
some guests coming this season. I've been speaking with a few people. They're not guaranteed by any means, but it's very possible we're going to get Colin Cunningham from SG1 back as a guest host to talk with us about one of the many films we're going to be reviewing and let us know what's going on with him. I've spoken with Diane Franklin, and it's possible we might get somebody else from Better Off Dead on the show, also as a guest host, because we're not doing Better Off Dead this season. But we got a lot of good things in line, and I will do my best to bring on some guests that you all want to see. Don't forget to comment and tell us what you'd like us to talk about, because, you know, somebody already did that, and they're getting the film they want. So you could too. For our Patreon subscribers, we apologize. We just did a review of, was it Wake Up Dead Man from the Knives Out series, but because I got a new hard drive and upgraded and went through all this stuff, for some reason the new hard drive didn't have a video codec. What does that mean? I couldn't make MP4s, so all the video is lost. I've since fixed it, or actually my friend Joe fixed it. I did everything I could, but you know my tech skills are only so much. Anyway, thank you, Joe, for fixing this thing. We now can make MP4s. So when you do get the Patreon video that we recorded, I don't know, what, 3-4 weeks ago when we were supposed to start our season? Yeah, it's only audio. I'll do my best to put some clips on there and some montage. It's only about 30 minutes long, but you will have a new Patreon episode for you to listen to, exclusively made for you. And of course, eventually, all Patreon content will go to YouTube. It doesn't go on our audio channels, by the way. So if you want to check out any of the Patreon stuff we do, you're going to have to go to YouTube. So when it gets released there, you can watch it there. And with that, got anything else, Eric?
No, nothing here tonight. It was great to, great talking to you guys again, and great seeing our audience members. I'm glad they joined us, and we hope to keep on popping.
All right. Well, I guess we're off, and we're leaving as well.